Hello everyone, Maria Young here from Shep Earth Aware and Green Spaces for Health. And on behalf of these two organisations and Cork Healthy Cities, Cork Chamber, the Environmental Research Institute and the Cork Environmental Forum, welcome to our fourth episode in the series Greening Our City. We're particularly excited about our guest today, Gitty Korsuize, joining us from the lovely city of Utrecht in the Netherlands. But first, a few words about the schedule today. At the start of every session, we highlight a local environmental project or a green business. And shortly, I will be handing you over to John Egan of EcoCell. EcoCell is an eco-friendly home insulation product made from recycled newspapers and is suitable for timber-framed houses, attics, and loft areas. It can be used both for insulating new homes and retrofitting old homes. The company is based in the Marina Commercial Park, Centre Park Road in Cork. And if you've any old newspapers or paper waste, you can take it down to the company and they will be converting it into insulation. In fact, Green Spaces for Health have a monthly collection of paper from businesses in the South Parish. And in the last 2 years, we've taken tons of paper down to EcoCell. We collect shredded paper, office paper, newspapers, any kind of paper at all, actually. So following John, our moderator, Denise Cahill, coordinator of Cork Healthy Cities, will formally introduce Gitty Korsuize, who will give her presentation lasting about 30 to 40 minutes or so. And the session will then open up to questions from the audience. The questions, as always, will be facilitated through the chat box. And again, for anyone not familiar with this, just click on the chat icon located at the lower center part of your screen. A panel will open up, type in your question, enter it, and Denise will direct it to Gitty. By the way, you can start entering your questions as soon as Gitty begins her presentation. Please keep your questions succinct. We may not get to all of them, but we will do our best. And just so you are aware, we are recording this session for the archives. None of the audience will appear in the recording. Greening Our City expert talks happen on the last Tuesday of every month at this time, 2:30 p.m. The purpose of these talks is to open up the conversation that is gathering momentum on how we in Cork might transition to a green city. Our next talk will be on Tuesday, the 23rd of February. Our guest speaker will be Valerie Byrne from Bankside Urban Forest in London. And the title of her talk is A Partnership Approach to Transforming the Network of Streets and Public Spaces in Bankside, London. So put that date in your diary now to avoid disappointment. Thank you for listening. And I hand you over now to John Egan of EcoCell.
Hello, this is John Egan, EcoCell. Maria, you've done a great job introducing me and asking for paper as well, so I won't have to do that. EcoCell cellulose insulation is made from natural fibres, i.e. newspapers. Before talking about EcoCell specifically, I'd like to talk about the circular economy and how going forward it is our only option. The linear economy, with its use and discard policy, has brought us to where we are now, which is not a good place and not a good legacy to leave to the young people who will bear the brunt of our misdeeds. The circular economy is the only way forward. As the name suggests, we only manufacture in such a way that there is no waste, or the waste can be repurposed to make something else. As regards the circular economy, I would consider EcoCell to be one of the exemplary examples in Ireland, as we take in a waste product and then we produce a material which outperforms the imported insulation materials. EcoCell cellulose fibre insulation is a low-tech solution that works perfectly and is tried and tested. We take waste paper from a printing press approximately 6 kilometers away, i.e. web print in Mahon Point, and then we make an insulation that can be used domestically for ceilings, roofs, floors, and walls. It can be used in commercial buildings, but it's rarely specified. As a result of our very low transport carbon footprint, i.e. we're only taking the paper from 6 kilometers away, EcoCell, from the life cycle analysis in its environmental product declaration, can claim to make 0.3 kilos of carbon to make 1 kilo of product. Fiberglass makes 1.04 kilos of carbon to make 1 kilo of product, and rigid insulation makes 4 kilos of carbon to make 1 kilo of product. This is a huge difference. Also, in the way EcoCell is applied, it's blown into either an attic, in which case we would call this open blow. It's blown in up to a certain level, or it's blown into timber frame walls, sloping ceilings. And in this situation, it is injected because it has to fulfill the cavity. Now, EcoCell, as it's pumped in, achieves a level of air tightness not possible with any sheet or rollout material. EcoCell will last the lifespan of the building and make the building safer in the event of fire. EcoCell is made from natural fibers, which are hygroscopic, which means it can take in moisture and release moisture, which is why I say that EcoCell will last the lifespan of the building. Also, EcoCell, due to its natural fibers and its ability to manage moisture, creates a healthy indoor air quality. And when installed, is carbon neutral, especially in the Cork area, as there's very little transport involved. EcoCell works very well acoustically as well. The fibrous nature of cellulose is also an excellent acoustic insulator. EcoCell outperforms what is 90% of the work done with insulation in this country is done with imported mineral wool. EcoCell outperforms the imported mineral wools as regards indoor air quality, fire resistance, thermal and acoustic performance, and air tightness. We've done tests recently where we would do an air tightness test on a house before and after we insulate it. This is just purely insulating an attic. We go in and we do an air blower test first, then we insulate the attic, and then we do an air blower test afterwards. We found that just by putting cellulose, EcoCell cellulose in the attic, the air tightness in the building goes up 20%. It improves 20%. This makes a huge difference. Okay, and I want to speak about insulation now, because the word insulation on its own actually doesn't mean anything. And insulation is a complicated issue. It's very hard to sell insulation, which is why a lot of it's sold on misinformation. The word insulation on its own means nothing, and it is a complicated issue, as insulation is only appreciated after the fact, i.e. when installed to the average person. I'll give you an example of this. My sister, who had been in the fire, who had been down in the factory 2 years ago. They had a fire in their house and they had to do small works, which meant re-insulating the house. While the work was going on, I tried to engage my sister to talk to me about the insulation. She wasn't interested. She was only interested in talking to me about tiles and paint colors. Now, I thought about it, and I thought, now, if there's one person who's interested in me being a success with this insulation, it's Liz. But she's not coming on board. And then I decided that I would wait and see. And sure enough, 3 months later, after she lived in the house and felt the results of the insulation, in a phone call, then she mentioned the fact that the insulation was very good. This is just trying to explain how your average person doesn't think enough about insulation. I mean, in my opinion, houses should be built around the insulation. We're trying to build passive and zero energy standard houses. but we're not taking into account the carbon footprint of the materials we use, and also the fire resistance of the materials we used and their contribution to the indoor air quality. EcoCell would be very good in fire resistance and contributing to indoor air quality. I'm going to move on to another thing, which is the size of the manufacturing plant here in Cork. I believe the size of the EcoCell manufacturing plant to be ideal, as it keeps the paper and insulation transport to the minimum. Were the EcoCell factory to reach full capacity, I would not think of making it bigger. Rather, better to open another plant elsewhere to minimize the transport. That's the business model I see for cellulose. Small plants dotted around countries. That way, the local people are involved in collecting the paper, and they're more informed because they're collecting the paper. They know why they're collecting the paper. It's to insulate their houses. This brings me to an issue I would have with the European cellulose fiber industry. These are huge plants which are drawing their paper from afar and sending their insulation afar. Cellulose fiber is a very bulky material which doesn't justify being transported over long distances. A 40-foot container only fits 11 tons of insulation. So, as regards EcoCell here in Ireland, this is 10 years. We've been making insulation here in Cork. For the last 2.5 years, I've been speaking with an architect with a view to getting EcoCell into social housing. I mean, EcoCell is mostly used by informed people in one-off bills or by informed architects. So we got to the point where we have 42 social housing units to be done in Bray, County Wicklow, and we have 56 social housing units in Clonakilty. It's the same architect firm for both social housing projects. What's happened in Bray, however, after dropping my normal price by 33% to try to get to do the 42 units in Bray, the builder, totally based on price, has opted for a German manufactured product with the added transport carbon footprint that will bring. This company is obviously prepared to do this at a loss to break into the Irish market I've spent the last 10 years trying to grow. This is where, with a bit of help from government and a bit of encouragement, I mean, for example, Cork City has, with EcoCell, an ideal opportunity to really educate its citizens, inform them about paper, its use, and inform all the people who specify insulations to specify the local product. I mean, look at the example of electric cars, for example. They have been seriously subsidized, and sales in Norway are now 55% of the total market, up from 1% 10 years ago. So imagine if a little help was given to EcoCell to make sure that more paper was collected in the city and more installation works were commissioned with EcoCell. I mean, all it needs is that will, because the ability to, I mean, EcoCell outperforms all the other insulations economically, thermally, acoustically, indoor air quality, and definitely carbon footprint. Another thing this is the last thing. It's a simple thing which seems to be getting ignored. Heat rises. We hear all these people talking about doing their, getting their windows done, getting their exterior walls done, getting dry lining done in the house. Rarely do we hear people talking about attics. And doing all these other works on walls, windows, etc., just puts more pressure on what is a weak attic. EcoCell recommends putting 300 ml open blow in an attic, achieving a U value of 0.11 and a 20% improvement in air tightness in the building. If this was if every attic in Ireland was like this, we would be saving a lot of energy. One thing that doesn't help this is the fact that the SEAI, the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, only looks for a U value of 0.16 in an attic. This is bad direction from above. They should be looking for at least a U value of 0.12 so that all attics are sealed and no heat is escaping through attics in houses. Add in, I mean, I just like to add at the very end here, if you take in the better fire resistance, the better indoor air quality by putting EcoCell cellulose in our attics, we would have fewer, we would have a healthier, safer house, and we would have fewer respiratory issues. So less medical care needed, more resources saved. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That was wonderful. And we have a few comments just on the chat box. Lots of positive support for the work that you're doing. Mary Ryder, who's a personal fan of your business, and I know Mary probably participates in that Green Spaces paper collection. Maria's been answering some questions, Maria Young, because I know she's very involved in collecting the paper, as she mentioned, for you in the South Parish area. And I know Maria's hoping to drive that into a carbon neutral mechanism by getting a cargo bike for that purpose as well. We're just seeking funding for that at the moment, so that's wonderful as well. Just some questions. Can magazines, John, if you don't mind just answering quickly, can magazines be used as well as newspapers? Just a practical question.
We can mix in a small amount of magazines if they're not too glossy.
Great, thanks a million.
And we can also take things like light cardboard, like tea boxes, cereal boxes.
Brilliant. And can I just ask?
They're the kind of things that people would have in households and would have to pay to get rid of. We'll take them here for free.
And just very briefly, is EcoCell just for attic insulation only? Is it just?
No, it's not. I mean, EcoCell can be used. The only place EcoCell cannot be used is in a masonry wall, because it's made from paper and it will draw moisture. Okay. But with the right specification, EcoCell can be used in every house for every purpose, both thermal and acoustic.
It's fantastic, and it's great to see you're a Cork-based business, so definitely check out. Maria has shared your website on the chat box. Check out the details, and if you have any specific questions as a follow-up, I'm sure John would be happy to answer them if you make
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Thanks, John, for that. That's wonderful. We're going to move on. I'm just going to welcome our very special guest, Gitty Korsuize from the city of Utrecht. Utrecht is another WHO healthy city, and we have worked a little bit with the Utrecht through an environmental and health subgroup that they lead through the WHO. Gitty works as an urban ecologist in Utrecht in the Netherlands, and as an urban green and nature advisor, she shows residents of Utrecht what nature surprises cities can offer. She connects people with nature, nature with people, and people with an interest in nature with each other. How much better than that can you get? As a strategist, she seizes opportunities to preserve and strengthen nature. The Utrecht approach to the animal-friendly building, for example, converts the flora and fauna research funds into more effective measures for animals that depend on buildings in the city. By smart procurement, Utrecht is now also famous for its green roofs on bus stops and the world's largest bee hotel. It's a huge pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon. Thank you for joining us, and I'm going to hand you over now.
Thank you, Denise. And also thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to speak in this digital conference. And I also would like to thank John Egan for his presentation, because it's very interesting. So maybe hopefully he will open up shop in Utrecht as well, because we have still a lot of installation ambitions here as well. So here we go. I'm gonna take you through my presentation. I'm focusing on nature in Utrecht because that was what I was asked. First of all, I will present you a little bit of the city of Utrecht so that you have an idea where I'm coming from and what my city looks like. Then I will show you some projects we did to improve the nature in our city. To improve your city, you don't only need new buildings or new projects, you also need to have a sturdy basis on which you build your city. So the ecosystem is coming across the presentation as well. And in the end, I would like to explain that nature isn't something I'm building alone in Utrecht. Throughout the presentation, I have 4 poll questions to make sure everybody is awake and stay focused. And to be honest, we have a lot of digital meetings here in Utrecht because of the lockdown. I guess it's the same for you. And long digital meetings or presentations, well, I like myself to be woken up every now and then. So hopefully this will function for you in the same way. Okay, here we go. The city of Utrecht. I planted an arrow where Cork is, and the other pin in red is where the city of Utrecht is. This is the fourth largest city of the Netherlands, and we're really in the middle of the Netherlands. So all railroads, they go via Utrecht to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. So our train station is the busiest train station in the whole country. So we have quite some mobility issues in our city. Luckily, we have a very nice historic city. On this picture, you'll see the Dome Tower. This is a very old tower, and at the moment it's reconstructed, or no, renovated, I should say. So this is how it looks before. It probably will look even nicer after, but for tourists, it's not bad that it's the lockdown now, because you won't see it in its full glory at this moment. Utrecht is also famous for its old canals. We have lovely canals with low wharves. And on these wharves in summertime, there are a lot of terraces, so you can drink your coffee or eat your tea, and a lot of dining is also on all these terraces. So a lot of restaurants have tables on the wharves. And it's a bit difficult to see on this picture, but on the top of the walls, that's where the roads are. So that's where the pedestrians are, that's where the bikes are, because of course, also in Utrecht, we're famous for our bikes, and some cars as well. But in the inner city, we keep the cars to a minimum to keep it livable. This year, oh no, last year, sorry, we're already in 2021. Last year, we had the good fortune to really encircle our old city canal. So where you see the big plastic whale, there used to be a highway with cars running through our city. This was a mistake we made in the 70s, and we took almost 20 years to repair it, but now there's water again. There are green banks on the one side. There's a stairs for people to sit and to ponder or have a chat. So we're very happy that we made this finally made this real. And as you said, Denise, we also have a big ambition on keeping our citizens healthy. And that's why our motto of the city is healthy urban living. For my left, I don't know if it's for you, on the right side of this picture, you see the 10 districts of the city of Utrecht, and we calculated the life expectancy of the citizens in the various districts. And the districts which have a dark blue color, they have a low life expectancy. And as you can see, for instance, Overvecht on the top, dark blue, those people living there, they have a 12 years lower life expectancy than the Northeast district. This is quite a big gap. So as a city, we are trying to do our best to make this gap smaller. And that's why healthy urban living is such a strong motto for our city, to make the levels more equal and to give everybody a high life expectancy. On the other side of the slide, you'll see Utrecht and the green areas, because greening our city is one of the main priorities in our healthy urban living motto. And you can see there are different landscapes around the city, but also green in the city is very prominent. But as the city of Utrecht, we also have, how do you call it? A lot of people who want to live here. So we are now 350,000 persons living in our city, but we are growing the next 20 years with 100,000 extra citizens. This is quite a huge number, and we're not solving this on the outside of our city. We're going to solve this inside our city. So we're densifying, but we also want to do it in a healthy way. So this, as you can imagine, brings a bit of tension with some project developers. Which is good, because it really makes sure that we are innovating our city in a green and healthy way. And we're finding new solutions which can help all the cities in Europe. So this densification and also in a healthy way gives us the challenge to add more green to our city. And I would like to show you 3 ways in which we are doing this. So the first way is by making our parks larger. So this is not a real image. This is still a drawn vision on of where we are going. But as you can see, the park is full of vegetation. There's a park on top of the railroads above the train. There's also vegetation underneath the railway, and also the facades of the building are being used to grow plants. This is one way we want to enlarge our parks. For instance, in old industrial areas, we just add them to the park with new developments. Of course, also housing will be a plan in these areas, but we want to combine new housing areas with strong green parks. The other way in which we want to add green is by densifying, or no, in our old city, we want to change the streets on which people are living. As you see on the bottom picture, there are a lot of cars parked in the streets now in the existing city of Utrecht. And by taking out these cars and persuading people to use smart mobility, public transportation, as much bicycles as possible, we make room in our streets for more green, for trees, but also for children to play in our streets. And this will help our city get more healthy. And on the bottom, on the top, you see the other way in which we want to improve our citizens' health. This is by making bridges to the parks outside our city. And this will help people to easily reach the areas around our city, and also will stimulate and invite them to take a bike or take a hike outside our city and enjoy the greenery and ease your mind, clear your head, stuff like that. And these, of course, are expensive measures, but well, health is a very expensive thing if you want to do it good. So that's it's worth it. So for everyone who's still with us, I have the first poll question, and I can see it. Yes, in this way a little bit better. Well, when you go into the garden or take a stroll outside your neighborhood, I would like you to add which you see, but before you start entering your answers, sorry, if you see the common swift, that's good, but if you see a house sparrow, that's even better. But if you see the pipistrelle bat, please add the pipistrelle bat to your list. So the common swift is, well, basic. House sparrow is better. So if you see that one, go for that one. And if you see the pipistrelle bat, then please vote for the pipistrelle bat. So all the numbers are running in now, are coming in. I don't know how you say it. And the house sparrow is winning at this moment. Okay. Why did I ask this question, and why did I put these animals in this order? Oh, I'm not sure if everybody can see the results. I am sharing them, right? Yes, okay. So the house sparrow has won. So this is a good thing because it tells something about the green areas of Cork. So this helps. The common swift is also a good thing to have in your city because this is a bird which is declining rapidly throughout Europe. But I will show in the next slide why did I come to these species. Wait. No, I should first quit the poll. Yes, sorry. Yes, here we are. I don't know if everybody knows this, but all these three animals depend on our houses and our buildings for their living. So the common swift and the house sparrow, they build nests in our building. So beneath the roof tiles or in the crevices or recesses in our buildings, they find a safe and secure spot to make a nest. And the pipistrelle bat, they use the cavity walls or also underneath roof tiles or in other crevices to roost during the daytime, because of course bats are only seen at night. The common swift is an animal which, as I would say, lives off the sky. It feeds from insects which are flying in the sky. It only lands or touches the ground when it's nesting. The rest of the year, it's flying in the sky. It flies to Africa to feed there in our winter time, and in April they're coming back to feed here. Here they build the nests. Sorry, and in Holland it's the case that there are less and less places for the common swift to nest. The house sparrow does the same. They can even use the same nesting places. If they do use the same nesting place, the house sparrow sometimes is evicted by the common swift. So, well, that's not a pretty story, but the house sparrow needs a little bit more than the common swift, because the house sparrow doesn't go very far. It only travels about 100 till 500 meters around its nesting place. So this is a totally different story than a common swift. But the house sparrow depends not only on our buildings for its nesting place, it also depends on green bushes and our gardens for finding seeds and insects to feed its young. And one of the reasons why this house sparrow is declining in the Netherlands is the buildings, which have less places for nest. But also in Holland, it's a problem that more and more gardens are being paved and less green can be found in gardens. So if you want a healthy living environment, green is very essential. It filters the air, it reduces the noise. It's also very good for your mental well-being. It invites for physical exercise. So these are very relevant topics. So as long as we have the house sparrow in our cities, we also know that the green is still there. So that's why I ask you to vote on the house sparrow if you also have this one in your neighborhood. The last one, the pipistrelle bat, it's less frequently seen because a lot of people don't visit their garden during the evening or nighttime, but I can assume that it will probably be just as common as the house sparrow, or maybe even more common. At least it was in the city of Utrecht. And the only thing more that the pipistrelle bat needs than the house sparrow is also trees to find its way to other parks, and water, where it also finds a lot of mosquitoes and small insects for nourishment. And it doesn't like light this much. Of course, you can see them a lot hunting near, you call it light poles, but if it can choose, then it will search for dark areas to feed and not the ones with the light poles. So if you really have a healthy environment for nature, you're best off with the pipistrelle bat, because you know you have trees, bushes, your buildings are fit for roosting in this case, and you also have little to none light pollution. So this is why I asked you to raise this question, because it also helps you to get an overview of what is happening on nature-wise in your city. And of course, in every city, it starts with citizens knowing what's happening near them on species level. So this is very relevant information. Okay, so this was the first poll question. Now we're going over to the next part of the presentation, and these are the projects of Utrecht on the topic of nature. So these 3 species I just talked about, they were declining in Utrecht, and we tried to improve their status. And this we did by adding more housing, nesting boxes to new buildings. We started this at a voluntary way in a new housing area of Terweide. We asked a landscape architect with a lot of passion for nature to tell the project developers what they could do to add more nature to their plans. And nest boxes for the common swift and house sparrow, they were put in several housing blocks. So this was very good news. They also added more green in their plans than they had previously taken in. So this was a profit for nature. And 2 years after these buildings were finished, I already saw house sparrows nesting in these nest boxes. So I was very pleased to see the success of this measure so soon after it has been realized. But from a voluntary way, we moved onwards to an obligatory way. And these nature-friendly measures were made obligatory for our own municipal buildings. So we built a new set of sport halls in which boxes for bats were added. But we also set an example on our own city hall. This is a monumental building, so it was a bit more difficult to simply hang some boxes on it. but with some help from our cultural historic colleagues, we made it possible to make some holes in the roof gutters, and these are fit for common swift and house sparrow to nest in. And in this way, these birds cannot enter into the building, but they do find nesting places in this monumental building. I put a lot of references to the internet for people who want to read more about it. With Google Translate, it's also easy to translate this into English, because I presume your Dutch will not be as good as mine. But then it's still a bit easy to follow what we're doing. And of course, there's a lot of pictures there as well, so that will give you a good idea of what's happening. Okay. From the obligatory way of these measures, we moved on to the obligatory way in tenders. So not only for our own municipal buildings, we now make these measures obligatory for all housing developments we set onto the market. And actually, this has been quite a success. A lot of project developers, or all, of course, because it's obligatory, are taking these measures very seriously. So this is a building that's been put up last year, and they really have 25 nesting boxes for the common swift. The reason why this is such a success is that these nesting boxes, they really don't cost anything. So if you have a housing development, it will cost you 1 million euros. I don't know pounds or Irish coin, but and these nesting boxes will cost you 1,000 or 2,000 euro total. So on the whole of your project budget, this is peanuts. It's more, the profit is more that we raise awareness with the housing project developers in how easy these measures can be taken and how simple it is to do. And in this way, we also hope that they will take these measures in other cities where these measures are not obligatory yet. And this is also a way to introduce them to nature into buildings. And the next step in this phase will be to add more green to the surroundings of the buildings. So by this small step approach, we help the project developers to see what they can do for nature in small steps. It doesn't have to cost that much money. It's more a mindset that we are changing than that we are making it very difficult for them. Of course, we are doing this now in Utrecht, but we're not quite finished. Of course, we want to know if these nesting boxes and bed boxes are really used. So we still have to make a monitoring scheme to see whether it functions, because if I saw it in one nest box, it doesn't make it the solution for all of the city. What we also learned from this process is that some ecological expertise is needed with the project developers for where you put these nest boxes. So if you put your nest boxes on the south side of your building, the eggs or the young birds will be cooked during summer season. So you don't want that. So you want them on the north side of your building. But if you're talking about bed boxes, those you can add on the south side, because beds, they sleep during the night, during the day. And in the end of the day, they are awakening, and they need to warm themselves up. And if their bed box is nicely warmed by the evening sun, this will make it a lot easier for them to warm up for another night of finding insects and mosquitoes. So This kind of ecological expertise cannot be found with the project developers, of course, but by introducing them to these ecological experts, it also is easier to have a next conversation on greening the city, or putting in some facade gardens, or also adding some hedges or bushes near their planting site. Small steps, but we're making progress, so we're very proud of this. Okay, the next projects. Because we are not only putting animals in our houses and in our buildings, we're also putting plants in walls. This was the Grifparkmuur, a wall next to a park. On the other side of the wall, there's a topsoil of clean and healthy soil. Underneath it is contaminated soil. So to make this transition, we needed a long wall, and citizens were very afraid there would be a lot of graffiti on this wall. So we made a lot of holes in this wall, and we put in a lot of plants. In the beginning, we thought about adding ferns, because we have a lot of special fern species all on our old kennel walls, and we're very we're trying hard to protect them and to enhance them. So we thought about doing this at this wall as well. But this is a south-facing wall. So this is really hard for ferns to grow there, because it's just too sunny and it's just too warm and too hot. But eventually it turned out fine, because we had a lot of flowering plants, and all the holes which were not occupied by plants were occupied by wild bees, which made their nests in these walls. And the wall is really, each summer, it's the most fantastic place to be. I do have to say it's maintained by volunteers, and well, if you visit Utrecht, do it during the summertime, and do visit the Grifpark to see this wall, because it's astounding. But this was mainly made possible by the volunteers and their dedication to this wall. So all praise goes to them. As we people like to travel, at least we really like to travel, but being in lockdown, it's a little bit less, but animals travel as well. So they need safe routes from one park to another, or from the area outside of the city to the parks in the city, or the back gardens of people. And this project I'm showcasing now is one of our biggest, in Dutch we call it fauna passages, but I think it would be fauna tunnel or fauna tube. This was made between two landscape parks outside our city, and this project took us 20 years to realize, but as you can see, it's been made while the road was kept open. So we shoved the tunnel underneath the road, as a matter of speaking. And we have a lot of small fauna tunnels in the city as well. They're usually under the roads, which are the most busiest roads. But this is also a project which is very relevant to keep it safe for animals in your city. On this webpage, you can see more examples of fauna passages. So next to the other one. This is a project which is also very relevant for healthy urban living. On the left-hand side of this highway A2, there was a new district being developed, and we added well, how do you say it? We put a longer tunnel around our highway. We put a roof on top of our highway, and this was very wise to do because it changed the noise barrier for building. So we could build closer to the highway because there was no intrusion of noise anymore. And it also solved the problems we had with air quality, because the air from the highway is vented at the beginning and the end of the tunnel, but isn't deposited at the new housing development area anymore. So in this way, we made more room for our housing development. We made it healthier, and we put a park on top of the highway for people to recreate. And it's really a lovely park, so I really enjoy it a lot. And there's also a lot of paper in the soil of the park to keep the moisture level in good condition. So this kind of joins the cellulose project of John. The next project. Yeah, that's also something which hasn't been realized yet, but we're very proud that it will be realized, hopefully in 2023. This is the project Wonderwoods, and this building will be almost next to our central station. So the central station with millions of people passing by each year. And we like it a lot because there's a lot of green on this building. And certainly in our inner city, we have very limited green space. And there's, of course, not a lot of room for adding new green spaces to our inner city. So with this building, we're doing it in a vertical way. This Wonderwoods building will have lots of trees, not only at the bottom, but also in the facade. On the top of the roof, there will be a roof garden at the 7th floor, which is publicly open during daytime. So it will really add green to our inner city, just at the place where we need it the most. So we're really proud to hopefully have this building very soon. And you can see it from the central station. So if you visit in 2 years, then it might be safe, and then you also can see what this building is looking like. And the trees are all already grown now near the national park of the Utrechtse Heuvelrug. So they are already growing there in time to put onto this building the coming years. So the next page. Yes, and this is something Utrecht is very famous for since 2 years. It went really viral all over the world. My colleague, Marie Prijs, he was overwhelmed with all the phone calls he got on lots of cities who wanted to know more, and papers and TV stations and everything. But we have bus stops with green roofs in our city. The green roofs exist mostly of a sedum vegetation. So it's flowering during the summer period, but if it's really dry, as we had 3 really dry summers, it still looks a little bit green, and it still has some flowers, and it can survive the summer season. So this is really practical with the climate change that we are all experiencing. Of course, as an urban ecologist, I do get the question, so what does this do for nature? And of course, to be honest, it does do a bit, but not really that much. But everything which is green is better than when it's just metal or concrete. So it's an improvement. We looked last year at the insects that could be found on these green roofs on the bus stops, and we saw that they were mostly used by honeybees and bumblebees. We did find some pretty rare wild bee species on it, so that was very exciting. And we did find some butterflies, but not that much. So we are looking in ways how we can improve this for our insect population. But for now, it still had some result. But I think the biggest result was that as a city, we have funding for citizens who want to green their roof, to help us make the targets from Paris for climate adaptation. And in the year before the green roof bus stops were there, we had 124 applicants. But in 2020, this number rose to 532 applicants. So it really did something with our citizens. They really saw that we were taking our green roof ambitious serious, and they joined us in greening their own roofs. So we were very pleased at this positive effect, and well, we're improving this even further, hopefully in 2021, I hope. This is the last project, and I'm not going to tell you a lot about it. It's the largest bee hotel we have in the world, we think, but well, I didn't travel the whole world to check if it's true. But both the bus stops and this large bee hotel were made by smart procurement. So my colleague Maurice Prijs, he knew we had to have new bus stops. We also committed to having a new advertisement pole next to our highway. And by making it a smart procurement where not only costs were the only topic on which people could achieve points, but also biodiversity and sustainability were topics in which subscribers could reach points. We got a lot of interesting project proposals, and well, the green rooftops on the bus stops was one of the winners, and the other winner was this large bee hotel, I think would be the word. And in this way, with smart procurement arrangements, you can make a difference as a municipality. You can stimulate businesses to come up with sustainable solutions, nature enriching projects, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to see what people can invent or can imagine if you put the right question on the market. So we're very, very proud on these projects. So this was the last project from Utrecht. So we are up for the next poll question. So I hope everybody's still awake. It's also a moment to stretch your legs, flex your muscles. The next question will be, which of the three photos, environments you see on the three pictures below will be the best for insects? Oh, I can't read it. Will have the most insects for birds? That's the question. Is it the frequently mowed lawn? Is it the meadow with few flowers but native flowers? Is it the meadow with a lot of flowers but non-native species? So you can add your answers now. And there's no right or wrong. I'll just explain the answer after this session, after this poll. Okay, so these are the results. Okay, so I don't have to educate you a lot. You all picked the right answer. That's very positive news. I still have to explain this to a lot of my colleagues and my citizens. So I'm glad you're already aware of the fact that native species are so much more important for your city than non-native species are. Okay, I quit sharing the poll. Move over to the next slide. Just to explain why I put up this question is a lot of people don't realize that if it's green, then it should be good for nature. Well, that's not automatically the case. You need a certain number of fundament for a good, healthy ecosystem. And I guess you all in school heard about the food chain. You first need flowering plants. In these you will find insects, wild bees, butterflies. Those are the foods birds and amphibians feed on these insects, and larger reptiles and mammals feed on the birds and the amphibians. And in the top of the box I put the birds of prey, but of course a lot of other top predators are in this top as well. And what happens if the number of green areas reduces in your city? Then you have the problem of not only reducing your green, but also taking a whole part of your food pyramid, and with that also the disappearance of a lot of species which are very relevant for your city. So I try to keep this schedule to make people see that we really need more green, high quality green, if I can choose, to also make sure that our cities are fit for nature. You need a strong basis to build your nature pyramids on. So the indigenous plants, I think a lot of people in the audience already know that it's very relevant, so I won't put a lot of time in this. I just want to tell you that in Utrecht we have a wild bee which only eats the pollen of bluebells. So it's not a very wise wild bee, because it only has a very limited diet. But this is more often the case in nature. There are a lot of specialized species, and these are the ones who are confronted with extinction more often than the global species who can feed on anything. Indigenous plants are also very relevant for butterflies, because before you have the butterfly, of course, you first have the caterpillar. And as annoying as it is, because it eats a lot of plants in your, how do you call it, vegetable garden, or in your meadow, they're still very relevant. If you want butterflies, you can't do without caterpillars. So, and those usually only eat very specific plants, and usually those are indigenous plants. So the one can't go without the other, and this is the strong basis you need to have in your city if you really want to increase your biodiversity. Okay, some elements which is also forgotten a lot of times is dead wood. It's in the food chain, of course. When you have the birds of prey, sooner or later one of them dies, and they will become a part of the life cycle again by decomposing, and all the nutrients go back into the food chain. Dead wood is also very relevant as a hiding place for amphibians during the winter, or a place to find insects for birds. But also if you want to have fungi in your city, you need that wood. So don't be too neat and too clean if you really want to enhance your biodiversity.
5 minutes, Gitty, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. Excellent. Okay, one of the very basic rules also for having a nature-rich city and a healthy city is the maintenance. It should be done in a nature-friendly way. In this slide, you can see that we didn't mow a part of the meadow. We did that on purpose. This was a place where a lot of flowers would still be there on the time that all the other plants were mown. And this is also a place where plants like the Fuller's teasel, which grow 2 years to be blooming, will have a chance to bloom because it isn't mown each year. And by making these flower islands on different locations every time, we make sure that it won't grow into a forest, but it will be, there will be more flowers also when we just mow the grass. There'll still be some food for insects to be found. Okay, we're going over to poll question number 3. And this goes for your city, not for mine, of course. Which stakeholders put the most energy in protecting and restoring nature in Cork? I really am curious into your answers. I would have thought the NGOs, but the citizens are coming up there very hard as well. How many politicians do we have in the room? I don't think they will like this answer. Okay. Ooh. So we have to work on the political angle of nature in Cork, I think. The citizens are runners-up here. I would have expected the NGOs to be very high on this list, but the citizens rate themselves higher. So I don't know what's happening with your NGOs, but maybe you can boost them a little bit as well. And the municipality, well, they didn't get a lot of votes either. So a little bit of energy on nature in Cork might be a wise idea. But this is just a small poll in the subset of people who are participating in this meeting. So, well, you have to do something about this. It's not my task, I think, but it's interesting to see. As you can see with this slide, in Utrecht, the NGOs are really active. They take a lot of effort in seeing which species can be found in the city. This also helps me as an urban ecologist because I have more eyes and ears outside. And this will make it easier for me to know what's going on and where I need to be to protect something or to enhance something. This one. Yeah, citizens are in Utrecht also very important in greening streets with facade gardens, but also in projects. They are the local experts to know what's possible and what's not possible in this area. They know which people are living there and they know how it's used. So we have quite a big participation degree to make all the plans we make. Also future-proof with the expertise of the inhabitants. Of course, as a municipality, we also have a role to play in greening our city. And in Utrecht, we had an experiment with the district greening plans. These were plans, or actually it was a big bag of money, and all the citizens could submit a plan, and it didn't matter what kind of plan it was. If they wanted to add green, they just submitted their project proposal and then we would try our best to realize it. So the submissions went from school yards to a communal garden, but also to restoring a playground or adding more green to the streets. It was really inspirational to see with which ideas our citizens came up. And for a municipality, it's quite exciting to not set boundaries, but just promise a big pot of gold and people can just fill in the project. But we had over 150 projects we could realize. So it was a real good for the energy in the city and of course the greening of the city. Okay, you didn't score really high on the politicians, but it's a really important factor in greening your city and making more nature into your city. So I put 2 politicians who did a lot for nature in the city of Utrecht in this part as well. Hopefully this digital conference will commit to a little bit more political engagement on this topic to rise to the occasion. Okay, oh, wrong way around. Okay, this is the last poll question, so I'm almost finishing up. After hearing all these things, what will your next step be in helping Cork nature to enhance or improve? Very curious into what I inspired you to do. Okay, up to, oh well, it's a close competition between rewilding my own garden and rewilding my neighborhood. But there's also a biodiversity action plan starting here. Okay, I think this is the result. So the neighborhoods will be greener after my presentation, I hope, and the gardens also. So this is a good improvement. And okay, there is some positive energy on starting on a biodiversity action plan. So I really like that result. I hope my presentation would be an inspiration to you all to take nature very seriously in making your city more healthy, because it's fun and it adds a lot of energy and a lot of positive feelings in your city. I think this will be my last one. Let's see. Yes, thank you for your attention, and I put a little advertisement for a conference if you need more inspiration. But over to you, Denise, for all the questions.
Gitty, thanks a million. That was excellent. It was great to get such a flavour of all the really practical and yet simple measures. You know, in some cases, obviously a roof over a highway isn't simple, but there's so many simple examples in there, you know, that can just be taken with and run. So thanks for that. I suppose the question that emerged in the chat box, and for me as well, is in relation to the housing measures and the obligatory housing measures that you have. I'm just imagining it here, you know, putting bat boxes on houses and plants and walls. Is there any fear from citizens around, you know, pests, or concerned about having bats in their houses, or that the infrastructure of the wall might be damaged? Did you have to overcome anything like that with the public?
Not really with the public, because our main interferences is with the project developers. But in all the constructions, there's always an obligation to prevent animals from entering the house. So it's really a waterproof house, and then you have a shell around it with the brick walls, and there the animals are allowed to live, but they never are able to enter the house. And no, we don't have really an issue with pest control, but we also put a lot of effort in explaining the public that these animals help prevent pests. So house sparrows and common swifts and bats, they eat a lot of insects. So if you really want to prevent a pest, you need these top predators in your city to make it healthy, but also very pleasant to live. Because otherwise we would be swarming in mosquitoes, and yeah, we don't want that. So we really need their help. And to be honest, they're already all over our city. A lot of people just don't notice it, or they don't know it. And this was very nice to see when we had bedlogger traveling through back gardens in our city. A lot of people didn't think they had bats in their garden, but all the gardens had bats. Some had one, but most of the gardens had 2 or 3 bat species feeding in them. Some even 6 different bat species. So it was really a revelation to see how busy it was with bats in our city.
That's fantastic. There's a few comments throughout the chat box. Thanks everybody for contributing. You know, somebody called Ayana Helder here just mentioned that whenever she visits the Netherlands, she really misses the wild Irish hedgerows along the roads, but she knows also that it does decrease the likelihood of roadkill to keep the greenery slightly away from roads. And Maria Young was just asking, in terms of citizen engagement, you know, have you any tips on how to get citizens engaged, or the public involved in the work that you're doing?
Lots of tips, but every citizen needs a different approach. For the district greening plans, we had the districts with high income people. They usually know how to find the municipality, and they are easy to reach when you have a big pot of gold for greening project plans or submitting project plans. But in the low income districts, we did put a lot more effort in reaching these people and making sure they were aware and thinking with them on what are the possibilities to green their area. But I also put a lot of effort in my volunteers. So I have volunteers for Bed 030, for beds, but I also have a lot of volunteers which are checking each year the common swift nesting places. And these are the nesting places in the old houses. And they not only are checking on the nesting places, but they are also ambassador for the common swift. They explain people that there is a common swift. They usually stand in front of their house for 5 or 10 minutes to check whether a common swift is flying in or out. So then that raises questions with people, and that's a great way to explain to the public, well, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm doing. It's very good that you have a common swift in your house. You should be very protective of it, and if you ever think about rebuilding or renovating, please contact us, or make sure you don't make it impossible for these birds to nest here, because they're very specific about their location. So they're not only volunteering in researching the nature, but they're also ambassadors and explaining what's happening in our city on this topic. And yeah, they're very priceless.
Yes, I think Maria would concur with that, and there is some volunteers here that work with Maria, you know, even making suggestions there now about, you know, looking at the bus stops in the South Parish and looking at the walls of St. Finbarr's Cathedral. So the ideas are generating, and thanks to those who are coming up with them. Neil Lydon just wants to say thanks for the presentation. He feels that there's a lot to improve here in Cork, and he's wondering what would be the top 2 factors which has made Utrecht a success. Top 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think the collaboration with my NGOs and my citizens. I think this collaboration is really strong, because even within my municipality, I still have to fight hard to get the nature perspective across. And the second one is the politicians. So I started a Twitter account as urban ecologist 030. And that really showed people that, hey, we have somebody concerned with nature in our city. And a lot of political parties were also following this Twitter account. So this raised questions in the municipality on what we are doing, why we are doing it. So, and this gave the people a feeling we have somebody who is standing up for nature. And this really, I think, are the 2 priorities. Brilliant. Or my top 2.
Lovely, thank you. Just some comments again, the Dutch approach from Rory Jackson. The Dutch approach is important, as they've lost so much due to poor decisions and use of pesticides. So they've learned from past mistakes, which we are seeing being made here now. So maybe a bit of learning for all of us in your process. Cleana wants us to twin with Utrecht. And I know the politicians got a bad vote there in our survey, but to be fair, there are politicians here today, and I think I concur with one of the participants there in congratulating them for attending, because they're coming to learn and to educate and to be informed. So I think we should acknowledge that as well. Cork and Utrecht are twinned by rising sea level. So somebody did ask around sea level, and that, you know, you're 5 meters above sea level in Utrecht, I think somebody said. And is there anything that you're doing in terms of the future with rising sea levels and around that maybe you can give us some steer on?
Yes, well, in Utrecht we are more concerned with the rivers overflowing, because the sea is quite far away still. But if the dunes and the dikes break, we do have a problem. That's true. But we have some time before it's with it in Utrecht. But we are planning on checking our city on what happens when the rivers really flood. Which roads are still accessible or not accessible anymore? Do we have alternative roads? How can we prevent this, or can we direct the water in other directions? So the sea level is not quite the issue, but flooding and rain are really top priorities. But we're still working on our climate adaptation vision, and it's hopefully this month or next month will be adopted by City Council. And in this also nature is a big part, because we are going to invest a lot in climate adaptation, and nature needs to be in there as well. You're spending a lot of money, do it good, don't do it twice.
Brilliant, great advice. Martina has a particular question just in relation to littering and illegal dumping or rubbish in Utrecht. Have you any experience of dealing with that, or any knowledge around how that's dealt with? Or it may not be your area now, to be fair, but just to ask you.
We have littering problems as well, and of course we try our best to minimize it and to educate the people, but this will still be a growing public problem. We have, or if you want to help us collect litter, we do have the facilitation that you get free, this English word I don't know, but it's a metal instrument to pick up litter.
A litter picker.
Thank you. Oh, this is easy. I could have guessed that. And some garbage bags, and we will help you in any which way we can. And we also have we're joining the worldwide global cleaning day and stuff like that. But
fabulous, yeah,
it's
doing
the
what
same.
You can.
Yeah, that's the same for you, I think, as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I suppose, a final question from Miss Old. She again says to say thank you for a great and inspiring presentation, and she'd love to know if in Utrecht, if there's been thought put into the detrimental effects of artificial light at night time, especially from street lights, on human health, the health of wildlife and the environment.
I don't know if I quite got the question, but in Netherlands we do have a pretty extensive research project on light in nature, and that's very illuminating. Sorry. And we, especially for our beds, we are trying to keep the lighting as focused as possible, our waterways as dark as possible. And we had a citizen, how you call it? I don't know this word, but citizen
engagement or citizen science, is it? Citizens
Assembly? This is a governance tool in which citizens can order us to do something.
Citizens Assembly.
Something like this, yes. And they ordered us to check whether we could put out different lightning poles. Okay. So we screened our green areas. We try to keep our parks without lightning, only if there's a really very important bike lane going through it, but otherwise our parks should be dark, because in the night you don't have anything to do there. It should be free for nature to live and to find food. So we do have strong ambitions on this, but the citizens even have stronger ambitions. So that's good. That's the collaboration again, which we really hard need.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for. And sorry, I'm just going to ask you one final question. Air quality, have you ever monitored it or measured the impact on air quality of any of the measures that you've taken? I've put up there for everybody from Cork a survey that's being done on air quality in the city at the moment between UCC and Cork City Council. So you might take time to complete that. But have you ever measured the impact on air quality, Gitty?
Well, I know for a fact that we have sniffing bikes. So these are bikes with a device on it which monitors air quality, and volunteers are cycling the same route each, I don't know, day or each week, I don't know that specific element,
Wow.
throughout our city. And this is a monitoring instrument for us to check air quality. We cannot align it, of course, to the projects we have done with nature. You never know where it hits, but we are monitoring it very extensively with volunteers and on a very innovative way, I think.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. There's huge number of suggestions in the chat box and a lot of links. So what we usually do is we save the chat as a file so we can share the links with you. Maria has just put up a link as well to a Cork Urban Tree Benefits Survey that the tree audit group in the South Parish have compiled. So another survey, if you've got one extra minute to do, please take the time for that. I'd like to thank you very sincerely, Gitty, for giving us your time this afternoon and for joining us here in Cork. It was such a pleasure to hear such practical, simple measures that you know we can all adapt, and that I'm sure we'll take forward a number of them here in Cork. I just want to remind everybody online that our next talk, as Maria pointed out at the start, will take place on February the 23rd. The last Thursday again of the month at 2:30 with Valerie Byrne from Bankside Urban Forest in London, and we're looking forward to that as well. This will be available online on our website. I'll be emailing you all with the link for that and with the link to register for the next session. Thank you very much. Thank you, John Egan. The comments from your presentation are very positive as well, and we'll send you the summary of that. Thank you too for your time today. It's absolutely fantastic to have a Cork City-based business presentation, to know that it's so local and it's so available to us all. And I know somebody from UCC mentioned there that they're going to look into how they can get their paper to you, which would be a wonderful outcome even of this this afternoon. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, everybody. As usual, thanks to the partners involved in this, the ERI, Cork Environmental Forum, Shep Earthaware, Cork City, our Cork Chamber, and Cork Green Spaces for Health. We're delighted to collaborate with you all on this, and we look forward to seeing you again in February. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me. And I hope to visit Cork sometime after the lockdown. Bye bye, everybody.